I do have a little something in the vein of this planned for next year, so be on the lookout for when I put it out.
Hey guys, RanterInShades here, exercise my first to memorize vlog style. This is part 2 of a retrospective countdown I'm doing in honor of the 10-year anniversary of graduating high school. If you haven't seen part 1, I highly recommend you check it out and not just pass it up all because you have a preference for negative countdowns, as the view counts on my worst songs videos compared to on the best songs videos is suggesting to me. I don't know if people realize this about me, but I like talking about stuff I like way more than I like talking about stuff I dislike. That may be weird for me to say as someone who calls himself RanterInShades, where there's this expectation that I'm someone that bitches about shit that grinds my gears, but it's the truth. Oh my god, I'm false advertising. So please check the first video out. There's a link in the pullout card as well as in the description. In the Best Songs video, I talked a good bit in the intro about how 2012 is a year I look back pretty fondly on. Unlike what most people say when they reach their 20s, while I wouldn't by any means go out of my way to call them the best years of my life, I actually have a number of enjoyable memories from my high school years, especially in my senior year in 2011 to 2012. And in addition to talking about how enjoyable of a year 2012 was in general, I mentioned how it's a year I hold in high regard for what the pop music landscape was like. I remember Sean from Diamond X Studios mentioning in his 2013 list that 2013 was an innovative year where there was a lot of variety in the world of pop music thanks to artists such as Lorde, but I've always seen 2012 as the year where the shift towards that really began. That said, does that mean 2012 was an amazing year for pop music?
No.
I mean, look at what video you're watching. For as much as I look at 2012 as being my favorite year for pop music in the 2010s, there was plenty of shit that was reminiscent of everything I hated about the pop of 2011 and maybe even 2010. Obviously, I have the benefit of hindsight when it comes to looking back on the music of 2012, but all these years later, and I still think just as lowly of the songs on this list as I did back then. Had I started making videos a year earlier than I did, which would have probably not been a great idea, this is what my list would have looked like. While the Best Songs of 2012 video serves as a tribute to the nice times I had both in and out of high school, this one's gonna serve as the middle finger to everything I resented or even flat out hated. The teachers that were really difficult and not a good fit for me, where the only reason I was even put in their particular class is because it didn't conflict with things such as band, the stress that came with the workload I would have dumped on me, the bullies and obnoxious windbags I dealt with early on, the pressure when it came to looking at and applying to colleges, any dumb drama having to do with Undertaker Freak 1127, particularly the drama he had with Muse that I still maintain was petty as crap, Steve Carell leaving The Office and the show subsequently losing its charm, when Fenway started getting his seizures shortly before I left for college, the Amanda Todd situation, Hurricane Sandy, the infamous Ronnie Radke mic stand incident that caused Six Flags to disallow metal bands from performing there, that whole nonsense about how the world was going to end on December 21st, 2012 because of the Mayan calendar, and other such things of this nature that I'm having a hard time remembering.
Hey, I also made a video that took place back in 2012.
Atticus, this isn't some excuse for you to plug the death metal historian video you did on Coney 2012, is it?
No. Yes.
Dude, stop being such a whore. It wasn't cool when you did this in the Mary Spender video, and it ain't cool here either.
Fine. Fuck you then.
Okay. As per usual, the only criteria I have for a song to be included on this list is for it to be on the Billboard year-end chart for the year in question. If a song's inclusion surprises you and you want to verify that I'm not bullshitting that it meets the criteria, you can check the link in the description to the chart and see for yourself that the song is indeed there. So with that out of the way, let's get back in the time machine and go over my picks for the worst pop hits of 2012. Number 10. Oh boy, so who remembers YOLO? Memes have been a thing on the internet since the early days of message boards, and while I'm sure I could very well be wrong about this, 2012 was really the breakout year for meme culture. This was the year I remember loads of people I knew in real life, myself included, hopping on board the train of sharing or even creating memes on Facebook and following a bunch of pages that specialized in posting memes. It was a simpler time, where top text, bottom text memes dominated the scene, but there was one meme that became an epidemic of sorts. A meme that was so big but hardly anyone actually liked, known only as YOLO. For those unaware, YOLO was an acronym that stands for You Only Live Once, and it functions similarly as the phrase when in Rome, or Hakuna Matata. It sounds harmless enough, but I remember hearing about people doing a bunch of dumb shit and justifying it with YOLO. And this little motto was spawned through a Drake song called The Motto. The thing that always bewildered me about this was how the phrase just flies past you with how rushed Drake's delivery is.
You only live once, that's the motto, nigga. YOLO, and we bout it every day, every day, every day.
And people still picked it up and ran with it. I've talked a number of times before on how Drake has been responsible for a good few meme templates to the point where in more recent songs of his, like 2C Slide and Way Too Sexy, he feels the need to force it due to feeling like that's what's expected of his songs. But in the motto, it feels like he wasn't trying at all, but something still ended up coming from it anyway. It's like taking a test you didn't study for and miraculously wind up getting 100% on it, or Christopher Columbus discovering America when he was trying to find India, or Bart Simpson becoming the I didn't do it boy. There's also a guest verse from Lil Wayne, someone I remember being literally everywhere throughout my middle and high school years, with a bunch of hardcore stans calling him the greatest rapper ever, and even the likes of KRS-One hyping the shit out of him, that I don't hear shit at all about these days, outside of when there was talk about him touring with Blink-182 that no one fucking liked. Something I remember thinking when Drake was rising in popularity was that his voice sounded eerily similar to Wayne's. If I didn't know already, I could easily see myself assuming that this was just Drake on the song, outside of how Wayne has a more slack-jawed delivery from all the weed he smokes, which of course he talks a considerable bit about in his verse. Another thing Lil Wayne was known to do a lot was make sort of non-similes like this.
I'm twisted, doorknob, money talks, and Mr. Egg. Got a drum on the gun, energizer bunny, ski, 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 water gun.
Where there's clearly supposed to be a connection between these two concepts, but there isn't anything in the line really connecting them. I'm not sure if this is a widely accepted term, but I've seen this referred to as hashtag rap, where you take the word like out of the line, and Lil Wayne was really fucking annoying about that. There's also a line in his verse that could be a weird reference to Finding Nemo.
Almost drowned in the pussy, so I swam to her butt.
Oh, look at me! I'm gonna go touch the butt!
As well as this reference that comes out of nowhere.
Oh my God, Becky, look at her butt, don't she?
As if Nicki Minaj didn't do enough to ruin that song for me a little. The reason I'm putting the motto at the bottom of this list is because of how little it does to really earn the hit status that it had. It is, at the end of the day, a by-the-numbers Drake song with a boring beat and an uninspired, lazy flow, where he brags about being famous and all the cool shit he does. It hardly really addresses anything pertaining to only living once, and ends up coming across as a throwaway song that became a hit and a fixture on the culture of the time entirely by accident, hence those comparisons from earlier. Along with that, we don't really hear much YOLO these days. Its impact was so short-lived that I don't really think it's worth it to put it higher. But if it's any consolation, at least this legendary meme was able to come from it.
High school never ends.
Number 9. I've never been the biggest country fan, you guys know that. There are definitely genres out there that I have a much harder time listening to, so I wouldn't go as far as to say I hate it. There are a few artists like Johnny Cash, Charlie Daniels, some Shania Twain, Zac Brown Band, and Brad Paisley I kinda like, and a small few artists like Chris Stapleton and Luke Combs that I'd at least say I respect as artists, but there's always been something about it sonically that never got it to fully click with me. And along with that, there were always certain fusions or subgenres that really made the genre as a whole seem off-putting. I do try to be fair when talking about it, mostly since that's how I'd want others to be when talking about the stuff I like that isn't their thing. But when country songs go the route of being stereotypically redneck, or at the very least southern, it's hard to not cringe. A song widely known for being a huge stereotype of country music is of course Chicken Fried by the Zac Brown Band.
Chicken fried, cold beer on a Friday night, a pair of jeans that fit just right, and the radio.
There was also that Florida Georgia Line song, I Love My Country, that would have been an easy contender for Worst Songs of 2020 had it been on the year-end chart.
I love my country, I love my country, 6 strings and fiddles and ski from Kentucky.
And then there's this song, Red Solo Cup by Toby Keith. This song is corny as fuck. It's one of those country songs about drinking at a party, and it's framed oddly like a love song to a plastic cup, the kind I've always called beer pong cups. The way the second and third verses are written, they sound like they want to double as being about a girl Toby met at the party, and it's just cheesy, more specifically with this part.
But I have to admit that the ladies get smitten, admiring how sharply my first name is written on you with a Sharpie when I get to hitting on them to help me get lucky.
It makes me think of the beginning of Talladega Nights when Will Ferrell signs that one girl's tits. Toby sounds really drunk in his delivery, but it's not in a way that comes off as endearing. Rather, it just sounds like a redneck rambling uncontrollably and inconsiderately. If you want endearing drunkenness in a song, look no further than Blind in Texas by Wasp.
It's time to do what? But I don't wanna go home.
The reason that works isn't just because it's really funny hearing a drunk Blackie Lawless complain about being told to leave the bar, but because it isn't the main focus of the song and fits the overall context of the rest of the song. Red Solo Cup just comes off like Toby Keith is trying too hard to sound funny and charming, and possibly trying to impress a girl he's probably too old for. I understand that songs like this don't represent the whole of country music, but it doesn't make them any less cringy and obnoxious. Even worse is that I have a hard time imagining who the song is for, outside of people that'll listen to any country no matter what. I like to think most people have a modicum of standards, and that even the staunchest of country fans won't disagree that songs like Red Solo Cup are nothing more than stereotypically corny redneck bullshit.
This is what I think of your fucking song, Toby Keith. Ha 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 ha.
High school never ends.
Number 8. Flo Rida is a guy I remember basically having a new single out every other month in 2012. He had Good Feelin' and Wild Ones earlier in the year, and I thought those were passable. But then we get to this song that's just a 3-minute blowjob reference that doesn't even have the courtesy of being clever. It's the kind of joke where the only reaction you can really give to it is, oh yeah, I get it, funny, very cool. The only people I can imagine genuinely finding Whistle funny are 11-year-olds discovering dirty jokes for the first time and learning what sexual innuendo is. Along with that, Flo Rida is being the least subtle he can, saying, "We'll start real slow, put your lips together and come close, and blow my whistle." He's really dumbing this down to the point where the only people that wouldn't get the reference are the type that are either really ignorant or uneducated about sex, or just generally oblivious. But are those really the kinds of people that would listen to Flo Rida? He was never someone I saw as being PG or kid-friendly, and that just makes Whistle even weirder conceptually. Much like Red Solo Cup, this song is ridiculously corny. The second verse is full of silly references that elicit a cringe. The first line there, he pretty much admits he's got a consistent boner. Do I really need to be reminded again of the boner pill scene in American Pie Naked Mile? And then he uses metaphors like soprano, perfect pitch, and whistling with the music, and it's like, we get it. This is basically the Flo Rida equivalent of writing a Broadway musical full of subtext. Yeah, you guys can tell I don't really have too much else to say. What puts Whistle above Red Solo Cup on this list is how seriously it sounds like it takes itself, at least in comparison. Even with how annoying that blaring sax melody in GDFR is that I talked about in 2015, Whistle has always been the Flo Rida song I disliked the most. By no means do I consider this the most offensive song ever. For fuck's sake, I'm a Steel Panther fan. That should be enough to say I like my fair share of raunchy humor in music. I just find the song really corny and half-baked, and that's really about it.
High school never ends.
Number 7. No, this is not a cover of the Huey Lewis and the News song from Back to the Future. Rather, it's the theme from Men in Black 3. You get it because they go back in time? I don't know, I haven't seen the movie. You'd think since he stars in the movies and did the original theme, they'd get Will Smith to do a new theme for this movie. I mean, say what you want about him and his rap material, but I always thought he had at least a modicum of chops and that the original Men in Black theme was a pretty cool tune. But I guess to be fair, music didn't appear to be his focus at the time compared to his still thriving film career, that hopefully wasn't jeopardized thanks to a certain stunt at the Oscars, embarrassing as he might have looked. And having watched the Train Records video Todd and the Shadows did on his last album, it gives a reasonable idea as to why he's moved away from music. Plus, I have a feeling he would have probably asked for a lot of money that the studio might not have had in their budget. So they settled on the next best thing as far as obtainability and affordability goes, I guess. Mr. Worldwide himself, Pitbull. Weird choice, but okay, he's got the suit and the shades, so that's good, I suppose. Back in Time is all over the place. The one thing I like it all about it is this guitar lick. But that's really credit I should be giving to the song being sampled, Love is Strange by Mickey and Sylvia, an early rock and roll R&B duo. I'm not sure what the purpose of sampling this is other than that it sounds cool. The whole chorus from that song is also sampled, and it really doesn't sound like it fits the vibe the song's trying to go for. To make things even weirder, after the second verse, there's a dubstep break because of course, it's 2012 and dubstep was really popular. So much is being crammed into this song, it's kind of a clusterfuck. You almost forget that this is supposed to be a Men in Black theme, but guess what? The song forgets it too. Listening to the lyrics, you get the impression that this wasn't initially made with the intent of being the theme for that movie. It's just a typical Pitbull song where he talks himself up, acting like he's the hottest shit around. The first verse is basically him talking about the clothes he wears. At a stretch, you could make a connection to Men in Black because they wear suits too, but any references the song does make to the movie are really forced. And even then, the only ties to it in the lyrics are
black suits, white shirts, black glasses with a matching tie like Agent J or Agent K.
And
let's save the world, Men in Black. I know you understand.
No, I really don't understand. None of this makes sense. Back in Time tries to be so much and ends up being nothing. It's comically pathetic. A Latin dude wearing a suit and sunglasses like the tacky motherfucker that he is, doing a pop rap song that samples a 50s rock and roll tune that doesn't have much of a connection to anything, throws in a generic and dated sounding dubstep break, and he raps about being a badass and shoehorns in a couple Men in Black references. And I'm just left sitting here like,
What the hell is that?
With how needlessly over the top the song is, it's weird thinking this was greenlit for use as promotional material. I can't help but wonder if there's a connection between this and why I haven't heard dick about Men in Black 3 in the years that followed to this day. Much like the last two songs on this list, Pitbull's corny and this song is a mess. What more can really be said?
High school never ends.
Number 6. I've made it no secret on my channel that I'm not a fan of Kanye. I always considered him the Donald Trump of music, in the sense that he thinks abnormally high of himself and says a bunch of ridiculous bullshit because it gets everyone talking about him. I've always described Trump as a media troll for that very reason, and along with the fact that he's filthy rich beyond your comprehension, that's why Kanye liked him. I'm not sure if he still does. He sees himself in him, thus making that comparison all the more accurate. That said, although Gold Digger is one of my biggest guilty pleasure songs, his stuff never really did much for me, which is something that's put me at odds with some of my viewers. If you like Kanye, that's great. I'm glad you're able to connect with his music. But it's songs like Niggas in Paris that leave me going, really? This comes from a collaborative album called Watch the Throne that Kanye made with Jay-Z, another rapper who, although I wouldn't say I dislike him and there are a few songs he has that I dig, I never really got the hype behind. On the surface, although they come from different generations of rap, this sounds like a crossover that makes sense. They're both rappers known for having larger-than-life personalities and have nicknames based on religious figures. Kanye gets a lot of credit for his production skills and sampling techniques, but again, when I hear this song, I'm left feeling a massive disconnect. Why? Because this song has one of the most annoying beats I've ever heard in my life. That's the main reason Niggas in Paris is on this list, let alone as high as it is. The beat is brain-meltingly grating. It sounds like they just plugged in a cheap keyboard, picked a preset sound, and repeat that melody over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Were it not for this repetitive beat, I would likely be indifferent to the song, but it's really blaring on the ears to the point where it sounds at equal volume with the vocals. Even when it's not playing in the outro while Kanye repeats the phrase, "Don't let me get in my zone," there's this white noise layered on top of a piano progression that I could see sounding nice if it weren't being drowned out by that TV static sounding noise. But the beat isn't the only thing that's repetitive. Throughout Jay-Z's verse, he feels the need to say "ball so hard" every other line, which of course makes me think of this little quip that I only know thanks to my brother.
Sizzle. Ball so hard university.
I can tell it's supposed to be a brag verse, but it just comes off sounding really incoherent. Kanye's verse isn't much better, but the vocal inflection he does in the beginning makes him sound like Roz from Monsters, Inc.
She said, yeah, can we get married at the mall?
Always watching.
Who'd want to get married at a mall anyway? Who do you think you are, Robin Sparkles? He has some really cheesy lines like these.
She's my friends when I'm in France. I'm just saying. Doctors say I'm the illest, cause I'm suffering from realness.
As well as a fucking royal wedding reference, something I still don't get why that was important at all, where he gets the prince's name wrong and then tacks on a reference to Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen for some reason. This is ridiculous. But none of that holds a candle to the dumbest thing about this song, aside from the annoying repetitive beat.
Got my niggas in Paris, and they going gorillas, huh?
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It
gets the people going.
No, I did not edit that in there, as much as that's definitely something that's in my nature as a YouTuber to do. That was a clip from the movie Blades of Glory you heard just thrown in. It's from a funny scene in the movie, but here it just comes off like it's just there to be random, and it's being done in tandem with Kanye doing a really corny play on the phrase "goin' ape" or "goin' bananas."
Banana was my idea.
So a clip saying no one knows what it means but it's provocative doesn't make sense to use because I understood it just fine, and I'm sure most people do too. And even if someone doesn't understand it, I doubt it's hard to put the context clues together. This isn't like the song Caribou Lou by Tech 9, a song I brought up when talking about Godzilla by Eminem and Best Songs of 2020, where there's that part where Tech says some random silly bullshit, and his producer then says,
Tech, huh? You're not making any sense.
That Blades of Glory clip would have made more sense in tandem with something like that, but this just comes off like a beginner YouTuber using a media clip he thought was hilarious, but it ends up being really poorly executed. And just to further drive the point home on how dumb the usage of that clip is, let's put it in its original context. Blades of Glory is about two male figure skaters played by Will Ferrell and John Hadiers, he even still making movies, who get banned from professional figure skating after a nasty brawl breaks out between the two of them regarding them tying for the gold medal in the Winter Games. They end up being convinced to team up after being told of a loophole for them to get back into professional figure skating by entering as the first ever male-male duo. Early on in their training, Will Ferrell's sexually charged and promiscuous character suggests skating to the song My Humps by the Black Eyed Peas, or
Lady Hump,
as he calls it. Hadir's character, in all his innocence, expresses disgust and confusion at this proposition and says he doesn't know what
Lady hump
is supposed to mean, thus prompting Farrell's character to say,
"No one knows what it means, but it's provocative."
If you're gonna sample a clip from an outside source, at the very least it needs to make sense in context. Fuck, I'm just some dork on YouTube, and I think I have a better understanding of how this works. Look at what I've been doing throughout this video. But yeah, Niggas in Paris is annoying. I was originally thinking of putting this much higher on this list, considering how much I hated the shit out of it in high school and college, but I'm not sure the beat or even the Blades of Glory sample by themselves warranted going that much higher up. And the songs coming after do a lot more musically and lyrically to push ahead that when looking at this with a more critical eye, it really is the kind of song that, although definitely shouldn't be near the bottom on a list like this, might not be as deserving of being any higher than it is than I originally thought. It's still the worst I've heard from both Kanye and Jay-Z, and the beat is always going to go down as one of the most annoying beats I've ever heard in my life. Maybe not Crybaby or Me Gente annoying, but still very much annoying. Number 5. If there's one thing I definitely don't miss about high school, it's how throughout my sophomore and junior year, Justin Bieber was everywhere. I remember it was around the beginning of 2010 when out of nowhere, pretty much every girl I knew was raving about how amazing this kid with a blonde bowl cut and high-pitched voice trying to sound like a romantic clubber was. There was even one girl I remember talking about writing a letter to Bieber asking him to prom. That's how out of control the shit was. Equally as out of control was the hate-dom for the guy. Anyone that wasn't standing him despised the living shit out of him, to the point where it became kind of a cliche for people to rant about why Justin Bieber sucks. These days I'm not as polarized on him as I was, but back then, Bieber was basically the antichrist of music in my eyes. Some time went on, and around mid to late 2011, I started to notice that Bieber wasn't being talked about as much. I'd figured we had reached the point where his time in the sun had run its course, like what happens with most overnight sensations, especially child stars. After all, prior to Justin Bieber, it was the Jonas Brothers that were seen as the antichrists of music that the fangirls defended religiously before they ended up just being a flash in the pan. This was obviously before Nick went solo, Joe had DNCE, and their eventual reunion in 2019. Getting back to Bieber, I remember he put out a Christmas album later that year, which I've always seen as the desperate and easy way to sell records, and I didn't hear shit about it. But one glaring thing I remember was that he had hit puberty.
All you can think about is girls, girls, girls!
Hey, you guys feel like playing some baseball? Excuse me, I'm gonna go masturbate.
Then 2012 rolled around and he put out Boyfriend. And my first thought upon hearing him on the song was that if that Christmas album didn't serve enough as the writing on the wall that Bieber was on his way out into the land of irrelevance, then this definitely would. But surprisingly, it didn't. This confused me so much because it's rare that kid singers have it in them to maintain the kind of charm and vocal ability they had when they were younger once the novelty wears off when they reach adulthood. I mean, look at Aaron Carter. Sure, some child stars have managed to age gracefully and keep their careers going, but I did not see that happening with Bieber after a song as awkward and embarrassing as Boyfriend. Now, when I say the song is awkward, I mean it's awkward. Like I said, the guy hit puberty and he clearly can't hit the notes that he used to. So what does he do? He raps. Well, that's being a bit generous. He's more so just whispering on top of a really boring beat about how he wants to be this girl's boyfriend. Granted, it's not as nice guy incel sounding as Treat You Better by Shawn Roger Mendez, but it's a lot more try-hard, especially with the overuse of the word swag in the verses, because once again, it's 2012 and everybody was saying shit like that.
Swag, swag, swag. Oh, you. Voice going crazy on his hook like a whirl with swaggy.
Swaggy? Dear God. That sounds like a name you give a stuffed animal.
Yo, Kaz Jr., I regret to inform you that after careful consideration, your name is now Swaggy. That should be a more fitting name considering the buddy of mine you're named after, Kaz Warfox, is very much a man of swag.
Swiggity swag, what's in the bag?
Getting back on point, that swag shit always struck me as a really forced way for Bieber to act like he's still hip and in touch with the youth. And that's weird to say considering he's the same age as me. Whenever he's not cramming all the swag he can into the song, he's basically trying really hard to impress the girl and really trying to convince her to let him be her boyfriend. The lyrics are really cheap, bland, and again, really try hard. There's one part where he says this.
I could be a Buzz Lightyear, fly across the globe.
Because nothing says quirky like making a Toy Story reference while hitting on someone. I love my childhood nostalgia at all, but there's a time and a place for it. Not to mention, Toy Story 3 had come out 2 years prior, so it may be a little late to be shoehorning such a reference in here. It's also awkward when he tries to sing. In the pre-chorus, you can hear him do an awkward falsetto flip, and I just imagine it sounding painful to record. As much as this isn't a show I look back the fondest on, it makes me think a lot of this. Then there's the chorus, where the singing sounds really uninspired, and you get the idea that Bieber really doesn't give a shit. Same with the outro, where he throws in some half-assed na-na-nas. really convincing ad-lib right there. Even the guitar playing sounds cheap. It always sounded weird that they used an acoustic guitar because it only does so much to make the backing instrumentation at all interesting. Boyfriend is a joke. Whether you hate Bieber, are indifferent to him, or you think he went on to improve, or even if you genuinely like him, this song is a joke, musically and lyrically. It reeks of a rushed attempt at trying to keep his name hot or shoot him back up after a period of time where it felt like he was falling off. Frankly, I'm amazed he was able to restabilize his career following this, because I seriously thought this was going to be it for him. If you asked me, I'd say this is the worst song of Bieber's I've ever heard. Yeah, Baby is annoying, but it's kind of a meme at this point. Yummy is cringe, but I see it as having some self-awareness about that. What does Boyfriend have?
Nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
The song is that embarrassing and cheap that I have no qualm at all calling this the worst Justin Bieber song I've ever heard.
High school never ends.
Number 4. Oh boy, this song. I will say, the one thing I love about this song is the memes. The memes were great. But other than that, Call Me Maybe was the bane of my existence back in high school. On the surface, it's inoffensive enough that I probably shouldn't be incredibly high on this list, but this shit was inescapable. It's honestly surprising this was only number 2 on the year-end chart behind somebody that I used to know with that in mind. I'm fortunate enough these days to not be in a position, at least not consistently, where I'm out somewhere and hit radio stuff is on and there's nothing I can really do about it. But when you're in high school not having a whole lot of freedom, avoiding this stuff is easier said than done, especially when it's a song like this that was such a cultural fixation at the time. I could barely go anywhere without hearing that repetitive fucking chorus. It almost doesn't feel like the verses exist. You know they're there, but it feels like the song is basically over 50% chorus. The kind of chorus that screams for someone to make a 10-hour loop of it. A bunch of times it repeats how Carly just met someone, how crazy it is, and she gives him her number in the hopes that he will call her maybe. To which I say, "Hi, maybe, I'm Shades." Ugh, we get it! Not too dissimilarly to Boyfriend, the lyrics sound really awkward. It's a really surface-level attempt at getting the attention of the person they're crushing on, and leave me thinking, yep, that's teenagers for you. But what's weird is that Carly was 25 when the song was released. Not old in my opinion, but old enough where you probably shouldn't be talking like a 15-year-old, let alone this sentence. How can you miss someone you haven't met yet?
I just haven't met you yet.
What also annoys me about how repetitive the chorus is the chord progression that goes on forever.
Goes on forever? Goes on forever.
And those strings sound like they were ripped from somewhere. Before the final chorus where everything cuts out and we just hear the strings do that descending major scale, the thought that always entered my mind is, I swear I've heard this exact violin line played with this exact phrasing and dynamics somewhere before, but the fact that I can't seem to find anything indicating that it's a sample really says something about how generic it sounds. I was always alone and really hating this song, or at least that's how it felt. But what's even weirder is the insistence I've heard from music reviewers I follow that Carly Rae Jepsen is actually a good artist. With how annoying of a song Call Me Maybe is, I'm not sure I believe that.
God damn it, Shades.
Random gangsta? What the hell are you doing here?
What am I doing here? Fam, you're focusing on Carly Rae Jepsen in a negative way. You're fixating on Call Me Maybe to justify disliking her and her music. That's not fair to her, dude. Like, imagine how it would be if someone focused on Avenged Sevenfold and the Hail to the King album just because it sounded like Metallica to them and thus invalidate all the other music that they have. Like, come on, man. I know you're better than that. I know that you can be fair, so for me, for my sake, can you at least try Run Away With Me?
You know something? That's a valid point. Hell, whenever people have written off Alter Bridge as being Creed ripoffs just because 3 of the members are from that band, I always got the impression they just listened to Open Your Eyes and nothing else. If that's unfair, then I guess it's unfair for me to give Carly Rae Jepsen the same treatment. I've heard enough people refer to Run Away With Me as a modern pop classic, and I've never heard it before in my life, so I'll give it a listen right now. Okay, this is definitely a step up. I like the bouncy shuffle feel, the 80s synth sound is pretty cool, the sax part ain't bad, and it sounds like there's more effort being put into the singing. The lyrics don't wow me, but they're carefree and sweet, albeit telling a cliched forbidden love story. It's certainly bringing more to the table than Call Me Maybe, so I can at least see where people are coming from when they shower the song with praise. I'm not sure I agree with everyone calling this a classic, but as a pop song, it's competent, well-constructed, and a fair cut above a lot of the stuff I'm known to complain about. Does this enthuse me to look more into Carly Rae Jepsen's music? I'm not sure, only time will tell. But what I can tell you is that right now my impression of her is paralleling that of Lil Nas X. When he came out with Old Town Road, I had a similar reaction to it that I did with Call Me Maybe. It was overplayed, it was everywhere, and I found it to be cheesy as shit. But then he put out songs like Panini and Industry Baby, which were vast improvements that, although didn't make me into a fan, changed my overall perception of him. Runaway With Me does change my perception of Carly Rae Jepsen. Hey, that kind of rhymes. And at the very least, I can say I'm happy for that. I know it's a tad unfair to compare Call Me Maybe to a song that came out 4 years later, but I can't help but feel that because Carly had it in her at all to make something like this, it kind of makes Call Me Maybe worse. It's kind of like what Schaeferless Productions said about the campfire scene in Shrek the Third, how that one scene is so emotionally relevant and impactful compared to everything else that goes on in the movie that it makes the rest of the movie worse. By the way, while I'm still on this video, anyone from high school watching who remembers this? But yeah, while I still find Call Me Maybe to be annoying and insufferable, I do see Carly in a new light that I could not have foreseen back in 2012. And who knows, maybe there will come a day where I'll listen to more of her stuff and be won over like I was with Dua Lipa a couple years ago. Thanks, Peter.
You're welcome. Now, I've got to get going, and on my way out, you'll know that my bunda is moving mad. Talk to you later, man.
I have some weird friends. Moving on. Number 3. One of my favorite pop hits of the 2010s is Fuck You by CeeLo Green. It's a total banger and a key example as to why I have a preference for funky sounding pop songs. It's a song that readily comes to mind when I think of post-breakup songs that raise a middle finger to the ex in style. And that's something I kinda see Want You Back by Cher Lloyd going for. The difference being she also wants her ex back. Her thought process is all over the place in this song, to the point where I'm sure some red pill manosphere douche would use her as an example of how all women are irrational. We're not being given any backstory about why her relationship ended other than her saying he wasn't good enough. But now that he's moved on and
Looking like a pair of clowns.
suddenly she's jealous and wants him back. She's basically Drake in the episode of Drake and Josh where he breaks up with a girl and immediately regrets it once he sees her with other guys. Speaking of teen sitcoms, Cher Lloyd puts on this really irritating tone of voice in the pre-chorus and sounds like a Disney Channel actress as she says,
"Really? You're with her now? Come on."
And it's like, yeah, he is. Is that really a problem? For as shallow as the reason you give is, you were at the end of the day the one to break up with him. Given her attitude in the song, it wouldn't shock me at all if she was actually the problem in the relationship and the guy was simply waiting for her to pull the trigger on breaking up with him so he can get out fast. So trying to say to him,
"Remember all the things that you and I did first, and now you're doing them with her,"
probably isn't going to get him to rethink his decision to move on to someone that likely treats him leaps and bounds better than you did. The second verse is really hilarious because she goes as far as to say,
"Please, this ain't even jealousy. She ain't got a thing on me."
Bullshit. Yes, this is jealousy. This entire song is conceived through jealousy, and if you don't see that, you're clearly in denial. And there's clearly bitterness there as well. You can believe you're the most deserving girl for a guy's affections, but at the end of the day, he clearly sees this new relationship as worth pursuing, and by proxy, better and healthier for him than what he had with you ultimately was. Better yet, if you're as hot of shit as you believe you are, then what's stopping you from putting your money where your mouth is and attracting a new partner yourself? I mean, you got the kind of look I'm sure a lot of guys dig. I get being upset over a breakup, let alone regretting it, but this is really salty and immature. And what's crazy is she's the same age as me, so make of the maturity level what you will. Another thing that really annoys me about this song is when she makes this sound. I don't know whose idea this was between Savan Koteka, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and Shellback, who's also the producer, but it sounds really grating and forced. Cher Lloyd makes this grunting sound every 4 bars, a whopping total of 18 times. And another thing I find really dumb about this song is how she censors herself in the chorus.
"I don't give a sh, no one else can have it."
Who do you think you are, Fred Durst? This isn't even a radio edit or a version for YouTube that censors the word for the sake of avoiding getting demonetized where you'd expect something like that. It strikes me as trying to make the song sound more kid-friendly, and given the age people tend to be in where they have dumb relationship drama like this or watch it on some live-action Nickelodeon or Disney Channel show, I'd say it makes sense. Cher Lloyd sounds like a total bitch in this song, that should be obvious to everyone. But she's not even the kind of bitch that has something about her that makes her endearing or even sympathetic. If you've seen the hour-long Disney song Fuckfest I made earlier this year, I talked about a handful of songs sung by the villains of the films in question. A big part of what makes those songs enjoyable is that the characters singing the songs are charismatic and have something about them that makes them entertaining to watch. The songs themselves are great and sometimes my favorite in the given movie, but we also have an understanding of the characters' motivations so they don't come across as one-dimensional. Cher Lloyd is about as multi-layered, endearing, and sympathetic as Butch the Bully, or if you want a Disney villain comparison, maybe someone like Clayton from Tarzan. The kind of character you can tell is the bad guy, but there's really nothing interesting or special about him at all. But he at least has the courtesy to not have a shallow, bitchy song like this. Number 2. Believe it or not, I was originally planning on having the song tie with another Rihanna song, Where Have You Been? I've had ties in other videos before, but never before in this series. But the more I thought about it, the more I noticed that there's a lot separating Birthday Cake from Where Have You Been. My complaints about the latter basically just boil down to the song being lazy lyrically, where it's just a singular verse that does the whole second verse same as the first thing, and chorus that not only pulls a McKenna Elise Adams through overuse of the word yeah, but is also only 7 words repeated over and over. That's really tame in comparison to Birthday Cake, a song that definitely deserves to rank higher than where tying with Where Have You Been would have put it. In hindsight, it would have been weird transitioning between the two, resulting in you guys saying,
Alright, buddy, shit just went from 0 to 100 real fucking quick.
Because wow, this song is wild.
It's not even my birthday.
It's not my birthday!
The layman might look at the song's title and assume that this is some cute song to play on your birthday. I'm sure the Kids Bop version would probably be about that, if they had one. But nope, it's referring to Rihanna's vagina. Beautiful. Rihanna's no stranger to really out there sexually charged songs. Her song S&M featured such flattering lines as "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but chains and whips excite me." Birthday Cake manages to take it a step further while still trying to have a sense of subtlety. It's one thing to use birthday cake to refer to your vagina, but then she says,
But I wanna lick the icing off, the icing off.
Yeah, the icing. What could that be? Much like Where Have You Been, the chorus is also repetitive and lazy.
You want that cake, 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 cake.
Please, say cake some more. Also in this chorus, she calls her birthday cake enticing, which, okay, we all love pussy here. But remember, we're wanting to lick the icing off. And like I said when I talked about yummy, vaginas have never struck me as the sweetest thing to taste, so I'm a little weirded out. But that's not all.
I'ma make you my bitch.
Now it sounds like she's gonna force her pussy in our faces. I would save that for someone consenting. But now let's address the elephant in the room. This song features Chris Brown. Yes, that Chris Brown. I don't know whose idea this was to have a guest appearance from him of all people on this song, but it's not hard to imagine how awkward this must have been for both of them, considering, you know, what Chris Brown did to Rihanna. To be fair, maybe Rihanna felt enough time had passed and considered the possibility that maybe Chris Brown had changed in that time frame, but that doesn't make it any less weird hearing them together, especially on a song like this. That's also probably the reason there isn't an official music video for this. While Rihanna's parts have some subtlety to them, Chris Brown wastes no time cutting to the chase.
Girl, I wanna fuck you right now. Been a long time, I've been missing your body.
I'm sure you have, and I'm sure we can all think of a number of things you miss doing to her body. They also have him sing part of the chorus because I guess he needed more to do, and to the song's credit, they don't have him say, "I'ma make you my bitch," because I'm sure everyone would have hated that, and understandably so. But it kind of makes his parts feel like they were thrown in at the last minute because it doesn't do anything to convey any sort of chemistry between him and Rihanna. Then again, look who I'm talking about. And as if things couldn't get weirder, the verse Rihanna does after Chris Brown does a short little rap segment makes things all the more confusing.
Remember how you did it, remember how you did it.
Oh no! That's not a word you want to be using in relation to Chris Brown. Her verse is suggesting that she's entertaining the idea of having a little get-together with her ex-lover here, feeling a little nostalgic for their nights together, perhaps.
Love the way you do it like that. Show up with them stacks, ring the racks on my rack. Wrap it up, boy, while I take this bow off.
It's not out of the ordinary for exes to have "I missed you" sex down the line, but I just can't see Chris Brown being someone Rihanna would want to do that with. I get that she's trying to be the one in control, and that maybe it's empowering for her to make Chris Brown her bitch.
He's my bitch.
But I don't think anybody asked for this. Usually in the Dishonorable Mentions section of my Worst Songs videos, I talk about a song that didn't make the year-end chart for the year, whether I'm anticipating that it'll carry over to the next year or not. For this list, however, that's only applicable to 1 out of the 3 Dishonorable Mentions I have. We'll start with the one that wasn't on the year-end chart, Stupid Ho by Nicki Minaj. I'm mainly including this here because I'm sure a lot of people probably remember it. I've seen the song used as the main example for the downfall of modern rap and modern music as a whole, and as much as I could talk my ass off about artists that disprove that notion like I did in my Why I Hate the Rock is Dead argument video, it's not hard to see why people would call to this song because it's such an obnoxious song. The beat is annoying with that constant like a poor imitation of a juggalo. The way Nicki pronounces the word ho like how is super irritating, and her demeanor in the song makes Cher Lloyd seem like a pleasant person to be around. It's headache-inducing. This is a diss track towards Lil' Kim, a rapper Nicki had beef with for some reason. I never really understood the context of their beef and always just assumed that Nicki hated the idea of there being other female rappers, at least back then. It's not like Lil' Kim was the only other one, let alone around Nicki's level of popularity. The song is told through an edgy, Slim Shady wannabe alter ego she has by the name of Roman Zelensky.
But no relation to Roman Polanski.
I don't know why anyone would make that assumption. Those are clearly different last names. That's probably a good thing, because being related to Roman Polanski would probably suck. But really though, it's not like I have to clarify that I'm not related to Michael Jordan whenever I introduce myself to someone just because my last name happens to rhyme with his. For a diss track, the lyrics are pretty basic. Any attempts at roast elicit an eye roll, and lyrics that try to assert dominance just come off as petty. And that especially becomes clear by the bridge.
Stupid hoes is my enemy. Stupid hoes is so whack. Stupid hoe should've befriended me, then she could've probably came back.
First off, great grammar there, amazing grasp on pluralization, Jax Films would be proud. Secondly, is this to imply that the only way for Lil' Kim to end the beef is to befriend you? That just comes off as needlessly salty and entitled. Nicki then has an incoherent tantrum before just abruptly ending the song by saying,
I am the female Wheezy.
I love how she thinks of that as a good thing. Is this the worst Nicki Minaj song I've heard? It very well could be. It's so low effort it contains a lot of the hallmarks as to why I've never liked her as an artist. But at the same time, I've always seen Stupid Ho as such an easy song to hate. Easier than a lot of the songs I've talked about in this series that are arguably easy targets. So the least I'll do is feature it in this part of the video, even if it did actually make the year-end chart. Second in my dishonorable mentions is Rack City by Tyga. I don't have too much to say about this other than how boring the beat is, how monotonous Tyga's delivery is, and how many goddamn times he repeats the word rack. The lyrics themselves are cliche I got money lyrics, which is typical with artists from Young Money Entertainment, the label that was responsible for how jaded to mainstream rap I was at the time. A couple lyrics I do want to highlight are this.
Mike Jackson, nigga, yeah, I'm bad.
Even if I didn't think Michael Jackson comparisons are really played out, that's probably the laziest reference to him imaginable. By the way, please watch Razorfist's videos. The other line I wish to highlight is this.
Grandma on my dick.
Why? And for my last dishonorable mention, Sexy and I Know It by LMFAO. I don't know what there really is to say. It's Sexy and I Know It by LMFAO, one of the cheesiest songs of all time, made by one of the cheesiest groups of all time. What more can really be said?
High school never ends.
Number 1.
Stop. Now make that motherfucker hammer time like.
God damn it, why didn't you stop? It is going to be so hard to talk about the song without directly quoting Muse's review of the song verbatim. As I said in part 1, as well as in other videos on the channel, he was my favorite YouTuber and my biggest inspiration to make videos, including this series. And if you don't know, his review of Ass by Big Sean is my favorite of his reviews. It's one of the funniest reviews I've ever watched, with all the references and zings he makes. I can't tell you the number of times I've watched that video back in the day. I loved coming back to it that much. Since I can't seem to find it on his channel, even though I was sure he re-uploaded it in 2015 after Blip.tv, the alternative video platform known for being more lenient with copyright than YouTube was, shut down and a bunch of people posted the content they had there to YouTube, I'm gonna have my download of it that I got when I was going on a downloading spree of his Blip content at the time like the fanboy that I was, uploaded to Google Drive and link it in the description for you guys to check out because it comes highly recommended. Anyway, this song. This fucking song. If you ask me what were the songs I hate the most, Ass or Dance Ass by Big Sean would most definitely be in the running. It is so one-dimensional and ridiculously cheesy, I have a hard time picturing anyone taking it seriously unironically. I'm not an ass guy personally, but as far as songs about asses, this doesn't hold a candle to Baby Got Back by Sir Mix-a-Lot. For as tongue-in-cheek as that song might be, it's leaps and bounds more clever, which is why it stood the test of time as much as it has. Big Sean, on the other hand, delivers lines that just elicit a massive groan, like we're supposed to chuckle or nod in agreement net lines like,
How your waist anorexic and then your ass is colossal. Tippy tay, you gon' get a tip today. Fuck that, you gon' get some dick today.
no idea what tippy tay is supposed to mean outside of having some shit to fill the line with, and then following that up with the most cliched setup for a porn. Classy. Not to mention,
They pay me respect, they pay me in checks, and if she look good, she pay me in sex.
yes, you get paid in sex, even though you were the one saying you were gonna give some dicking in place of a tip. Cheap bastard.
You the best, you deserve a crown, bitch. Right on the ass.
Okay, if I can quote the Muse video just this once because it's probably my favorite line. That wouldn't work. Well, maybe if she had one of those shelf asses, then maybe. Why am I overanalyzing this? Another thing I always found to be kind of dumb about this song is the sample of You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer in the chorus, which itself samples Super Freak by
Rick James, bitch!
And saying go stupid over it, well, yeah, sample sections like that are pretty damn stupid. And when he says,
Stacking my paper, my wallet look like a Bible.
okay, George Costanza, sounds like you could use some help from the good people over at Ridge Wallet. Nah, they're not sponsoring this, but imagine if they were. And how fitting that I mentioned Baby Got Back a little bit ago, because this song features a rapper who would go on to sample that song a few short years later, Nicki Minaj. Generally speaking, it's also very fitting that she's on a song all about asses considering, well, you know. Her verse is exactly what you'd expect on a song like this, although she spends the first half of her verse talking about pussies, culminating in this.
And bust this pussy open in the islands of Waikiki.
Did that really need to be held out that long? And immediately after, with no prompting, she continues,
Kiss my ass and my anus, cause it's finally famous.
ah yes, this was back when every mainstream rapper was talking about how they finally made it and shitting on haters and all that. Not to mention, I always found it weird that she says kiss my ass and my anus, since I always thought they were supposed to mean the same thing. But now my adult mind is interpreting the anus part as implying a rim job. Wonderful. It's weird that these kinds of cliches are included on a song about asses, which in itself is a cliche, but to me that's always spoken volumes as to how generic and stereotypical of early 2010s rap the song really is. I suppose this line is what ties it all together.
Bitches ain't poppin', Google my ass. Only time you on the net is when you Google my ass.
Gotta love taking a roast on them haters and morphing it into a cute allusion to porn, like they'd even find your ass to be of interest anyway. Wait, didn't I Google a picture of her ass to use for a joke a little bit ago? Shit. And the way she ends her verse makes just as little of sense as the way Big Sean ended his.
Give me all your money and give me all your residuals and slap it on my ass.
What would be the point of doing that if they're just gonna fall off? That's not as sexy as you think it is. The bridge basically has Big Sean listing different types of girls and telling them to shake their asses. I guess some would find it okay that he's trying to be inclusive here, but Outcast, you are not. Either way, I'm sure I've said everything I possibly could to convey how atrocious ass is. Have I heard worse? Oh, certainly. But this song has managed to stick out of my mind for over a decade as one of the dumbest songs I've ever heard. I've heard a handful of people claim Big Sean is capable of better, and for all I know, he is. But for as much as I look back on 2012 pop music pretty fondly, songs like this should be remembered so as to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past as we go down the path to make pop music great again. As much as the songs on this list still stand out in my mind as being awful relics of my final year of high school, it by no means takes away from the good that came from that year, and it doesn't make me look back on the music of 2012 any less fondly than I do. A big reason why I view 2012 as being an influential year for me isn't just because of how it planted the seeds for all I'd go on to do following graduating high school, but also because the songs on both my best and worst lists laid the groundwork for how I evaluate pop music. The qualities I love, and the qualities I hate. And that's why no matter how I feel about the songs on this list, no matter how old I get, no matter how I feel about my high school years in hindsight, no matter if there might be times where I sit here and ask myself if it was worth it that I went down the path that I did and made the choices that I did in my life, I'm glad 2012 happened. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this little retrospective journey because I had so much fun putting this together. And once again, to anyone from high school watching that made it to the end, thank you for checking this out. I hope that even if you disagree with some of my takes in this video, you at the very least enjoyed the ride. If you like what you saw, feel free to check out other videos I've made over the years, be it from the best and worst song series, other countdowns I've done, or my regular music commentary output. I might not have the most subscribers or get the most views on my videos or even make any real money from this, but this channel is something I take a great deal of pride in, and that's something I really hope shows more than anything. It's been a fun hobby for me over the past 9 years. I wouldn't have still kept at it if it wasn't. It's been interesting making these retrospective year-end countdowns, and although I'm not sure of the likelihood of doing something like this again, rest assured the show will go on in 6 months with best and worst songs of 2022. So I hope you're looking forward to that because I certainly am. Other than that, stay tuned for the stuff I'll have going on in between. Thank you again for watching this video, take care, and have a nice day. I'm Shades, and I'll see you next time.